They see Steam as a threat. There is no question about it. First, it was the AAA gaming industry. Then, it was the payment providers. And now, it's the government. And the government already tried to do things with Steam a couple of years ago. And now they're potentially back to try and force Steam to bend the knee again.
Nexus mods will and must follow the law. That's a direct quote, it's a fun quote, and it's also why Discord currently wants to scan your face for seeing anything not safe for work, even if it's just a meme. And the thing is, this is not scaremongering. This is not.
Doesn't places like Britain think that memes are the most dangerous thing in the world? They're technically right, by the way, but
Dystopian fiction. It's actually happening right now, and on July 25th, it will become law. Law that's actually got teeth. As an example, Steam could lose $2.5 billion over a simple checkbox. That's 10% of their global revenue, and it's all because they ask, are you over 13? Instead of scanning your ID.
So, here's a little bit of a thing for everyone who wants to be perceived as smarter and better at finance. Revenue is not profit. Fine for 10% of the revenue that you have gotten is massive, because typically most companies don't make like 80% of their revenue in the profit or anything like that. Most retail places are actually below 5% most of the time. So getting fined for 10% of your revenue can actually lead to massive changes in a company. So keep that one in mind.
Scanning your face. But even before the law goes online, I have a totally different example of this literally killing a game. Here's one called Urban Dead. It's an online zombie survival game. It ran for 19 years, and then the Online Safety Act killed it. Not hackers, not bankruptcy, no, fear of an $18 million fine. And that is what the Nexus mod owner was talking about when he said that basically the law is the law and the site must follow it. Sites will need to fundamentally restructure themselves and change how audiences interact and share content online, because if they don't, they will face financial obliteration. And make no mistake, this may be starting in the UK, but it is already spreading. The internet is changing, and the deadline for compliance is here. So let's get into the impact. But there's actually another thing I noticed when I was tracking this story on Ground News. They're today's sponsor. There were two. July 25th, that's the deadline, and that is when companies must comply with the United Kingdom's Online Safety Act. And this means the services they offer will have to change.
It's always the UK trying to suppress free speech, make people miserable, and completely remove everything they deem as bad or problematic off the internet, and they want to take everyone along for the ride. Listen, I have no problem with the UK becoming a tyrannical a-hole, okay? Absolutely zero. But keep to your goddamn island, okay? Keep it to yourself. I'm fine right here. My friends are fine right there, and you're probably also fine right here. The UK can destroy itself, the UK can do whatever it wants, but just leave everyone else out of it.
Change, all because of this new UK legislation. What's the big focus then? Well, it's about protecting under 18s through hardline verification. Essentially, that means no checkboxes, real verification. You know the way.
The irony of the UK trying to pretend under 18-year-olds. Wow.
As kids, we would all click the little checkbox saying, I'm an adult. I'm totally allowed to use this service, even if we weren't. Yeah, that's no longer going to cut it from a legal perspective, and companies will be held liable. Now, this is going to apply to any website or service that's operating within the United Kingdom, and the penalty for breaking it is $25 million or 10% of global revenue, whichever one is higher. But it's not just the UK. Australia has actually got a similar law in the works. It's not taken effect yet, but it's at least on the way. And even looking at the US, we can see stuff in specific states. Florida are already banning under 14s from social media. Then there's Texas. They couldn't ban under 18s from social media entirely, but both Utah and Texas.
I mean, social media is a problem. It creates a lot of problems for especially developing people.
Now demands something else, that companies must verify users' ages at the point of using an app store. And the EU, of course, has got new laws as well, and they've even got an open source tech solution for verifying ages. So overall then, here's the thing with all of this. it doesn't matter that respected organizations oppose this. And make no mistake, many of them do. The Wikimedia Foundation is calling these a massive threat. The Electronic Frontier Foundation are also not fans of this. They say it threatens online privacy, security, and speech. But these laws are moving forward anyway. The governments don't really seem to care that much about those criticisms. Now, we've already talked about this one before with Discord. If you remember, of course, the news breaking about not safe for work stuff on Discord, and you basically needing to like validate your account with a facial scan or, piece of ID. Now, those systems exist. They're being tested for UK and Australian users right now, and it basically means if you want to access an adult-tagged channel or server, then you'll need a scan of your face or your ID. This hit me when I was looking at my Warcraft guild's memes. It's like, hey, you want these memes? You gotta identify your face.
Memes, he said. Wink, wink.
Which doesn't really feel great. Now, the way this works is either your facial scan or your ID then goes to a third party. That third party will then confirm if you're allowed to access the content, and that will then basically flag your account as being allowed or not. And that essentially means that for Discord, they kind of just get a black box. And what they get out of that is this user validated? Are they not validated? All of your actual personal info, that's going to the third-party provider, which of course is one that would exist in a very heavily regulated space. Or so you would hope. Anyway, after all that scanning is done, then...
Yeah, we heard about this before, but the reality is they're gonna probably find a way to sell that stuff. They're 100% finding a way to sell your stuff. Your photo, your everything.
Good, you can continue as normal. And if you think an American IP address would save you, then no. Think again, because we're already seeing these roll out across basically everywhere. It essentially seems that this is the way the wind is blowing globally, and because of that, loads of companies are changing things. That means established sites are restructuring at a fundamental level, and that is why we've got to talk about
disgusting global order BS.
Nexus mods. Nexus mods had a choice: either block content geographically for EU and UK users or adjust the site accordingly. Of course, they chose to adjust, but so far they haven't actually said exactly what they'll do. So we've got no confirmation of like facial scanning or documentation checking, but they will have to implement some form of meaningful check in order to be compliant. What about everyone else? Well, they're redesigning the site to help with this whole EU and UK process, and some of that's actually good. It's going to mean new content tags, new filtering options, people will be able to block things like harmful substances as a tag if they really want. Basically, all of this stuff that's existing within wider adult content filtering. But on top of that filtering and categorization, the site's also getting some new tech, where basically it will be able to pick up on illegal or abusive content upon upload, or when it's posted to something like comments. Of course, that's how it'll work in theory.
You see, this is the good old situation of illegal. Oh, what's illegal? Anything that we think is illegal. Yeah, I'm sure this is not gonna be used in any way that we are not gonna be happy about. I am sure this is not an absolute extreme governmental overreach, legislative overreach, and completely not understanding the modern day by a bunch of 80-year-olds. I'm sure this is gonna be great. I'm sure.
I'm sure there'll be false positives and false negatives, but that's at least the system that they're implementing. Now, to be clear, right, these are not new draconian rules from government. This is content that's already banned, right? Already banned on Nexus mods. Essentially, what's changed here is their incentive to robustly enforce the rules that they've already got. Where basically a lot of governments will say, all right, but a checkbox, an age checkbox with no verification, that just doesn't cut it. We all know what's going on. That's kind of what the governments will be saying. And yeah, it's okay if you've got a not allowed content policy, but if you don't enforce it, if you don't scan files, then what good is your policy? I'll leave specific thoughts about the nuts and bolts of this to you, but basically understand that it's all part of the same big old response to a lot of this new legislation, right? Better scrutiny, better review processes, more control for users, all of that stuff. But for Nexus mods, the timing was especially noteworthy. You see, some people connected these changes to the sale of Nexus mods. Yeah, you may not know it was actually sold. It was sold to a company called Chosen, who are a growth company, which does honestly sound a little bit spooky.
Yeah, that definitely sounds something like from the MU Online years,
But people basically argued that this was capitulation to, the growth company and line go up. They essentially said Nexus was doing this to avoid scaring potential investors, that it wasn't actually based on any principles. But at least if you listen to the owner of Nexus, who, I mean, obviously does have a horse in this race, Dark One, he did say that basically he's kind of relieved. Because with the sale, he's glad he doesn't actually have to deal with any of this bullshit anymore. But he did say
Obviously.
that if it was still under his ownership and control, that he would still follow the letter of the law. Because the thing is, if he didn't, he would be
Well, yeah, it's not even a question. You're gonna have to follow this, otherwise, what are you gonna do? What are your choices? Go bankrupt? Lose everything? No. Even if we're talking about an extremely woke place like Nexus Pods, they're still gonna capitulate, okay?
fined 10% of global revenue, and the only way to get around that would be to just geo-restrict Nexus mods in like entire regions, which probably wouldn't be tenable. The biggest problem, though, the letter of the law isn't 100% clear to everyone, and compliance itself is in fact a risk. Right, here's what you need to know about the actual law. So, the Online Safety Act passed in 2023, but UK government changes delayed things, as they so often do. The implementation process was long, so it actually took forever for details to emerge, like who's affected, how are they affected. Now, to deal with this, a UK organization, Taiga, have been helping games companies navigate these sorts of laws. They've been doing
Taiga, like the river? What?
this for years, so what they're trying to do is get everyone ready for the deadline, which is essentially like upon us right now. So what we can do is we can try to use their understanding of this law to guide us a little bit. Now, per them, any game available in the UK counts if users can interact. And that means user-generated content, text chat, voice chat, I guess maybe emotes, just basically anything that's user to user, which is absolutely huge in scope. This impacts so many games, so many websites. Now, it is fair to say that a lot of the requirements are already things that are common practice. That means risk assessments for under 18s accessing your game, content moderation tools, reporting tools, clear codes of conduct, basically that type of thing. Now, all of this is going to need designated individuals who report to Ofcom, who are the regulator, and that means you're going to need things like timelines for removing inappropriate content. Now, a lot of this already exists. A lot of this was already being done. It's just that it's being codified, and there really is teeth behind it. And of course, the framing is, as it always is, the protection of the children. And that is where the age verification thing comes.
God damn those children. They ruin everything. First they're not enough, now they're, well, still not enough, but now they're just ruining everything. And they're getting stupider and stupider by the day. That's the real worst part here, okay? The fact that the stupider they get, the more protections they need to get. The more protections they get, the stupider people are. Okay, listen. There's a reason why people... There's a reason why 20 years ago, countries needed to make ads that started before the evening news, reminding then adults to, hey, you have a kid, right? You have no idea where he is. Maybe it's time to go find him because it's almost night. And then the parents were like, oh, right. I should probably check if my kid's not, deleted somewhere. That was the life before. And that bred people who were capable of dealing with stuff a little bit more because, survival of the fittest, honestly. And now that's no longer a thing. Now the average child is as pampered as the average cat in Europe, which is extreme, honestly, if you know anything about having pets in the modern day, probably also outside of Europe. Cats live like kings here.
Comes in, that is why you'll be asked for your face and your ID far more often. Basically, anything risky goes behind an age gate because that just manages risk, and that's all that these companies basically want. They just want to dodge all of this shit and have to spend as little of their money as they possibly can. So far, most requirements just involve cataloging risks. What are the companies actually doing about those risks? Well, Ofcom have been reviewing these reports since spring. Once they're done reviewing, they'll issue some guidance, and then the fine stuff won't actually kick in until late autumn this year. So at least there's a little bit of time where, it won't just be, hey, it's the 26th of July. I would like 10% of your global revenue, please. Thank you very much.
Again, the crazy thing about the UK is the fact that the other companies don't do this. Again, 10% of revenue is crazy. You tell like a bread shop that they're gonna fine you 10% of your revenue. They're like, we need to go in debt now. Same with this. Yeah, sure. Steam definitely does have better margins than a bread shop through, but at the end of the day, it's still a lot. And there's gonna be other companies that are not Steam. Internet companies, people don't understand margins. Okay, I don't. For a normal brick and mortar shop that resells stuff, the average percent of pure profit was below 5. I think it was like 3%, and you're actually still doing pretty well. Because the whole idea is that the revenue is ginormous. The revenue is in billions. And from those, like, from that billion, you make 3% of pure profits. And that's still a pretty decent sum after everything. For the internet, sure, that's above. I don't actually know what's the percent margin on Steam. It's probably high, but it's not like Steam can just afford to be fined for 10% or whatever number they said. And Steam can't really, well, they can't afford it probably, but I mean, it's probably gonna hit them pretty hard. Other companies can't afford this at all, and this is where Britain is completely off the wall with this stuff. Other countries don't do it to this extreme level. They fine companies to a point where they're not gonna want to get the fine, but if they get fined, they're not destroyed. Britain is completely like, okay, I think we need more money for, well, for what.
That would be a little bit hasty. Anyway, the effects are already damn clear here. With big companies, we see it in the way of compliance, but with others, we're actually just seeing people not willing to take the risk. Especially, say, those who are running specialist forums. Yes, if you're running a specialist forum, you might have to deal with this. I suppose we as an organization won't have to deal with this because, like, we
What's
have
a
our members
specialist
Discord.
forum, though?
That's on Discord, so it's Discord's thing.
Anyone want to explain to me what's a specialist forum? I mean, is it literally what the name implies?
But, if we were to roll our own forum, I suppose we would actually have to deal with something like this. It would probably mean I'd have to have another software subscription to some company that, like, just provides compliance services. That's one of the things that happens, right? You'll have new regulatory guidelines, and then loads and loads of companies will exist.
And the thing that people don't think, good thing that Billy mentioned it. So, you may think this is not a big deal, but if you're paying money for something, you're gonna have to pay more money, most likely, for that thing. Because, well, I mean, company needs to now buy another service from a third company to do this thing for them, or they can make their own thing, which is technically even more expensive in a lot of cases. Except Amazon. Amazon's gonna make their own thing, probably, because that's how Amazon does everything nowadays. In any case, now your product costs more because there's more moving parts. It's that simple. And this is why we don't want these things. Not only is it going to be a hustle for us and going to make it more annoying that you need to make a selfie every 5 minutes. I'm not a woman. I can't do that. I'm a normal guy. I'm using the same picture from 5 years ago that was accidentally good for literally everything I have. Like everyone else. I can't be making selfies constantly. But this is what's going to happen. And we're going to have to pay more for the things that we buy for these sites. And a lot of sites, a lot of places probably. Just because they're going to have to now spend more money to make sure that we have access to their thing in the first place. Because now they have to pay a third party
to provide compliance services. Now, a casualty of this is Urban Dead. It ran for 19 years, 8 months, and 11 days. It's actually one of the longest running browser games on the internet, and the Online Safety Act has in fact killed it. It was a text-based MUD, multi-user dungeon. It's something from a long time ago. Yeah, text-based MUD. It's got a cult following. People love it, but of course, because there's people there, well, the game was allowing for user interaction, which would mean it would be subject to this law. And that then meant that this game, which is a community-supported project, faced a fairly large dilemma. They either spend significant money to refit the game and refit their infrastructure to fit all of this, or risk a fine of up to £18 million, or just simply end support and take no chances. And unfortunately, they chose the latter. They have shut down. And the worst part, right? Projects like Urban Dead, things that are of true deep value to people, they're just collateral damage, because we all know they're not the real target of this legislation. I hope I'm not stating the obvious when I say this is a law built for the big players, like the Instagrams, the TikToks, social media in general. It's why Reddit now requires a selfie or ID to access 18 plus rated subreddits.
It's not built for the big players. It's also built to keep the small players out. The more legislation, the more rules you have to get into an industry, to get into anything, the harder it is for someone new to come on the block and start doing things. The harder that is, the less competition. The less competition, the easier it is for the government to fully control whatever the hell they want to control. It's way easy. It's simple math. It's way easier to control 2 or 3 companies than it is to control a million small companies. It's just easier. Less manpower, less everything, less fuss, and it's that easy. Well, we're going to see what happens with this. We are at the brink of change, and, well, the UK, as always, is going to ruin everything for everyone. 10 out of 10, that was Billion News. Bye-bye!